Let's play a quick game. Without looking it up, can you name the greatest NBA players who never won a ring? Two-time league MVP winners like Karl, Malone, and Steve Nash immediately come to mind. However, some of you may have opted for Reggie Miller or Allen Iverson. New generation NBA fans could even squeeze in players like James Harden and Russell Westbrook. Either way, most of you would have been correct, but the list would never be complete without one man, and it's none other than Charles Barkley, aka Chuck. Today, Barkley's famous for his work on TNT and his arguments with Shaquille O'Neal, which often ends with Shaq reminding everyone that he has multiple rings and Barkley has none. Well, that's true. Shaq has 4 NBA rings compared to Chuck's 0. But it is also true that despite not winning a single NBA championship, Chuck was a great hooper and undoubtedly one of the greatest players in league history. So, how good was Charles Barkley actually, and where does he rank in the conversation of GOATs who never won a ring? The 1984 draft is regarded as the greatest in NBA history, and you only have to look at some of the picks to understand why, especially the top 5 picks. The Houston Rockets selected Hakeem Olajuwon as the overall number 1 pick. Right after him was Sam Bowie, a hot prospect who showed flashes of his quality but ended up being just another player in the league. Then we had Michael Jordan, arguably the greatest NBA player of all time, as the 3rd pick. The 4th was Sam Perkins, another prospect who had an extended NBA career but never reached the superstar level. And then there was Charles Barkley, a 300-pound power forward who was drafted by the Philadelphia 76ers as the 5th overall pick. Barkley came into the league with a controversial reputation. Many people saw him as an undersized power forward, and his unhealthy eating habits also drew criticism. Yet the 76ers drafted him. So why would a player with such a profile get selected as the 5th overall pick in the greatest draft ever? Well, for all the criticism about his height and weight, Chuck was a very talented player with exceptional rebounding skills, and it wasn't long before he proved his doubters wrong. Despite playing alongside veterans like Julius Erving, Maurice Cheeks, and Moses Malone, he established himself as a starter and a productive scorer. In 1987, he became an all-star, and from then on, his game continued to evolve so much that he became the face of the franchise. He was consistently ranked among the top 20 players in the league, even finishing 2nd in MVP voting behind Magic Johnson in 1990. Averaging 23 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 assists across his time in Philadelphia, Barkley was considered by many the best power forward in the league. But for all his outstanding performances and accolades, he couldn't lead the 76ers to the NBA championship simply because he didn't have the right supporting cast around him. So in the summer of 1992, he decided to join the Phoenix Suns. Charles Barkley and the Suns were a match made in heaven. On the court, he was the heart and soul of the team, and off the court, his hilarious demeanor and flamboyant lifestyle made him a fan favorite. The entire city of Phoenix adored him, and he made sure to reward their love with exceptional performances. He won the league MVP in his first season with the team, becoming only the 3rd player to win it in their first season with a new team. That in itself was a great achievement, but the fact that he won the award ahead of a prime Michael Jordan made it even more special. To crown it all, he led the Suns to the NBA Finals for the first time in almost 20 years, but they lost to Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls. Barkley would go on to spend 4 more seasons with the team, including in 1994 and 1995, when they lost to the Houston Rockets in the semifinals. In each of those seasons, Chuck was nominated as an All-Star, and his averages of 23 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 assists ranked him as one of the most productive players in the league. Yet he didn't win the championship. So, if Chuck was as good as the metrics suggest, why then did he fail to win the championship with the Phoenix Suns? Well, it's down to the same reason he failed to win it with the 76ers. For all his individual brilliance, Chuck didn't have the right support cast around him, and as we all know, basketball is a team sport. No matter how great a player is, if they're not in the right situation, winning it all is nearly impossible. After a series of unsuccessful postseason runs, Chuck decided to take his talents to Houston in 1996, a move that was seen as a win-win for both sides. Having won back-to-back titles, the Rockets were convinced that signing a player of Chuck's caliber and quality would increase their chances of winning more championships. In addition, the Rockets front office believed that Chuck's status as a superstar on and off the court would give the team more visibility and hopefully steer them closer towards their long-term goal of building a new arena. Meanwhile, for Chuck, the move was the perfect opportunity to win the championship, especially because he was going to be playing alongside other superstars like Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler. But things didn't turn out as Barkley had planned, and similar to his time with the 76ers and the Suns, the power forward failed to win the title with the Rockets. But this time, it wasn't because he lacked a good supporting cast. I mean, Hakeem and Drexler were a big upgrade on the guys he played with at the Suns, not only in terms of quality, but also in terms of experience. However, they never really reached their peak as a team. On paper, the combination of Barkley, Hakeem, and Drexler looked unbeatable, but the dynamics of how they combined on the court wasn't exactly flawless. For instance, to accommodate three of them in the same team, Chuck sometimes had to play as the third scoring option on offense. And even though they were still in their mid-30s, the duo of Hakeem and Drexler were already past their prime. That's perhaps a surprise, because NBA players back then didn't have the type of longevity that players of this era are accustomed to. In addition to all these issues, the team also lacked depth on their roster. You see, while trying to sign Chuck, the Rockets had to sacrifice some of their young and promising players, replacing them with veterans. Due to this change, the team's average age shot up significantly. This was evident in the 1996 season, where the team's top 7 players in minutes played per game were all at least 33 years old. Of course, Barkley was among them, but his case was much worse because not only was he aging, he was also battling health issues. In a bid to rejuvenate the team, the Rockets added Scottie Pippen to the roster, hoping that he'll bring some of his three-peat magic from Chicago to Houston. But it didn't work out due to the lack of chemistry between him and Barkley. Considering all of this and the high expectations that were set when he joined, Barkley's time with the Houston Rockets was a big disappointment. I mean, his averages of 16 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 assists per game across 4 seasons says it all. Nevertheless, Charles Barkley retired as an NBA legend. But more importantly, he left behind a legacy that only a few players can match. Despite retiring over 20 years ago, he remains the shortest player ever to win the NBA rebounding title and one of 4 players in league history to record 20,000 points, 10,000 rebounds, and 4,000 assists. But beyond the stats, many people will remember him as a dominant power forward and a fierce competitor. Currently, the one player that fits Chuck's profile is Zion Williamson. The only difference would be that Chuck was a lot more efficient and dominant with his play. And if we could roll back the years and get prime Chuck on the court right now, his tenacious rebounding and versatility would be valuable in today's NBA, just as they were in the 80s and 90s. Not to mention his leadership qualities and unwavering dedication to the game. Looking back at his career, it's safe to say Charles Barkley was one of the best players of his era. His dominance on the court and unforgettable personality left a lasting impact on the game, and he's easily one of the top 20 players of all time. Chuck just didn't get as lucky as some other NBA legends in terms of being able to play with players that complemented his skills. What do you think of Charles Barkley's career, and how well do you think he would have performed in today's NBA? There's another NBA star who transitioned from being a player to an analyst. Unlike Chuck, this player actually won a ring. So, who exactly am I talking about, and is he really greater than Chuck? Check out this video to find out.